This video is sponsored by Empower. It's this cool app that can help you save and budget your money. Download the app for free. Link is down in the description below. What's up, you guys? Welcome to the video. My name is Brandon. Now, as I'm sure most of you guys are well aware, Reuters came out with an article a little while back now accusing Johnson & Johnson of knowing that their baby powder had tested positive for traces of asbestos. Now, on the release of that article, we saw Johnson & Johnson shares drop about 17%, and the stock is yet to recover from this drop. Now, in today's video, we're going to be talking about whether this looks like a buy the dip opportunity or more or less a stock that we should kind of stay away from. We'll take a look at the positives, we'll take a look at the negatives, at the risks associated with Johnson & Johnson. Take a look at the negatives or risks associated with Johnson & Johnson, and at the end of the video I'll give you a little summary on whether I think this is a good stock to buy. So the argument being made here by Reuters is not that there is currently asbestos in the baby powder. What they're saying is that during testing done a while back, they found small traces of asbestos. Johnson & Johnson knew about it and decided to keep that information disclosed, which has resulted in a legal battle with Johnson & Johnson. But let's dive into the company, guys. We'll first start off taking a look at the positives surrounding Johnson & Johnson. Now, Johnson & Johnson is known around the globe as a leader in the pharmaceutical/healthcare space. It's as simple as that. They've got a very diverse revenue line. When you look at the breakdown of their segments, their company is essentially divided between their consumer products segment, the medical devices, and pharmaceutical products. So Johnson & Johnson is the company behind Band-Aid, Tylenol, Aveeno, Neutrogena. They also supply medical devices for surgeries and to hospitals. They do joint or hip replacements, those type of things. And of course, they have their pharmaceutical products, so the vaccines and whatnot. They just have a massive involvement in the healthcare space. And what we see by taking a look at their revenues here, revenues north of $80 billion in their trailing 12 months, okay? That's a lot of money this company's pulling in. And with such a diverse lineup, and note here, very high margins, upwards of 66%, what Johnson & Johnson is very good at is generating cash flow. This is a very good company in terms of generating cash flow. Taking a look over here, guys, operating cash flow, free cash flow up $22 billion, $18 billion in the last year alone. And when you have a company that generates cash flow very well, that often relates over to the company's ability to pay out a very nice dividend. And in the case of Johnson & Johnson, JNJ stock, JNJ, the company, has been known to be one of the best dividend paying stocks out there. And just looking at the current yield on Johnson & Johnson, which is currently hovering around 2.78%, it's not a huge dividend per se, but this company's raised their dividend for 56 consecutive years. And that's one thing that investors love about a company like Johnson & Johnson, the reliability of its dividend. So from a numbers standpoint, just taking a look at my numbers here, the company looks to be doing just fine. I will point out a couple things here. You may notice an extremely high payout ratio. Taking a look here, guys, normally the company's payout ratio is they're paying out half of their income out in dividends. Well, this year we see that skyrocketing up to 500%. Another example of this is looking at their income, their net income for the year, substantially less. And PPC Ian, another channel in the YouTube community, did do a video explaining these irregularities, which I will link down below, and he did a better job than I could have explained. So go check it out if you're interested. But essentially what this comes down to is the company taking a tax hit this year, kind of like these odd one-off expenses involving, in particular, a big chunk of this was repatriation of overseas money to take advantage of the lower tax rate. But in my opinion, those irregularities are not something to worry about. But as for the negatives for J&J, let's first start with the lawsuits. And like I said, this isn't new for the company Johnson & Johnson. In fact, pretty much all of the major drug companies, the major pharmaceutical players, are going to be going through something similar to this. When you have products, you're dealing in the space with healthcare and all these chemicals in your products, you're going to run into some lawsuits. Now, they of course have the resources available and dedicated strictly to fighting these lawsuits. I mean, I'm talking here like top of the line legal teams. Getting into these legal battles is just part of, a day in the life of being a company like Johnson & Johnson. Now, that being said, these lawsuits are not something to be overlooked. From a monetary standpoint, from time to time, these companies do end up forking over money through settlements where they have to dip into their cash reserves in order to settle a specific case. On top of the lawsuits, another risk or negative that a lot of these major drug companies are facing is an increase in generic competition of their drugs. And we can take the drug Viagra as a good example of this, right? Everybody knows Viagra. Now, this drug used to be patented by the company Pfizer, by the big drug producer Pfizer. So if you wanted to go out and buy a little bottle of Viagra from your local drugstore, Pfizer was the company behind that. Pfizer was the company producing that. Now, that patent has now expired, meaning that any drug manufacturer out there, anybody can go make their own generic version of Viagra, which is of course a negative for the big drug companies. Another negative is that whether or not Johnson & Johnson knew about the asbestos in their product, the reality is this is going to have an impact on the image or the branding of the company Johnson & Johnson, at least over the short term. And a personal example that I can share with you guys was even at our firm. The day that this news got released, we had a client call up saying, wipe out my position in Johnson & Johnson. She didn't want to support that stock. And I can guarantee you that she was not the only one to do so. There will be a lot of investors out there that will say, I'm not supporting this, I'm not with this company, and that could have a short-term impact or a short-term effect on the performance of the stock. At the end of the day, in summary, at least in my opinion, this will pass. And sooner or later, people will forget, and this will be just that thing that happened a few years back, and everyone will be going well on their way until the next thing happens. And then there's another report that comes out. That's just the nature of this business. Regardless of how this certain situation, this baby powder situation works out, the question that you have to ask yourself is regarding the ethicality of this business or of this stock. Do you want to invest in a company like Johnson & Johnson? And it's completely understandable and fair enough if you don't. Now, my personal opinion on this, if you had to ask me, do I think that they knew about the asbestos in their baby powder, if it was even in there? I think they absolutely did. I think that a lot of companies will do dirty things and try to get away with it. That's corporate America for you guys. When there's so much money involved, they'll cut corners, they'll do what they have to do, they'll sweep what they have to underneath the rug. We've seen it with Volkswagen just a few years ago, even Facebook recently with their whole data scandal. I mean, don't try to tell me they didn't know what was up with that. Companies, they all got their dirty little secrets. Your favorite company probably does too. In my opinion, it's just a matter of who gets caught and who doesn't. Now, with the shares being down 17%, is this a buying opportunity, guys? I personally think that JNJ right now is a hold. And I already do own the stock, so I'm planning on holding the stock. I'm not rushing out to necessarily go buy more. At the same time, I'm not considering selling my shares. Like I said, from a financial standpoint, I think that the company's numbers look strong. Again, this is one of my favorite dividend-paying stocks in the stock market, hence why I'm happy to hold the stock. But just with everything that's going on right now, with all the lawsuits and the negative light that's being shown on Johnson & Johnson, I don't think that this is a deep enough discount to call it a screaming buy. I'd say that it's pretty neutral for me. And that's, of course, strictly my opinion. Feel free to agree or disagree. If you guys enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, subscribe. I post a video every Monday. If you're interested in checking out the exact stocks that we buy in our group, my personal portfolio, look at when I go out to buy stocks, the price we get at, the size of the position, check out our membership group, guys. It's that first link down in the description below. But as always, again, I hope you enjoyed the video. I thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.